Hi everyone. Earlier, a few days ago, I released a little post about the Microsoft Digital Defense Report, and one of the things I talked about in there is how administrators need to move towards phishing resistant MFA. And I got a couple questions like, what does that mean? How does it how do you set that up? Basically, what it means is that in your Microsoft Authenticator app, you now have a pass key capability. You can also use, FIDO2 keys, key cards, USBs, YubiKeys, that type of thing with your phone or your PC. Basically, it's another physical thing that you have to validate authentication, something tangible, right? It's not just a password, and it's very, very phishing resistant. So you have to physically have something to do the authentication with. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in the Microsoft space. I'm going to show you about passkeys. I've got the document here for how to enable passkeys. We're not going to go through that whole process here, but I do want to show you in Entra ID how you configure this. Basically, I'm under the authentication methods section, and you'll see this passkey FIDO2 key option here. What you want to do is you want to enable this. If you're testing it, just only make it available to a few users, but FIDO2 is becoming much more of the norm, at least in the circles that I run in, especially for administrators, and so this is how you enable it. The configuration is pretty simple. You just turn it on and set the groups who you want it to be applied to. There's some settings in here about attestation and things like that. I'm not going to go into that. You can go read the documentation on all what that means. But point being is get it enabled. And so this is where also the password protection stuff is built in here. So your lockout sessions and all of those things that you can do around password management, similar things you would have in a Windows Active Directory. You also have the authentication strengths. These are the pre-built ones in here. One of them is phishing resistant MFA. You're going to see these in the conditional access policy selections. Basically, this says you have to have a FIDO2 or passkey. Windows Hello for Business, which is FIDO2, believe it or not. And so these are all the same level of capability because Windows Hello for Business uses, fingerprints or facial recognition to identify who you are. So it's a biometric essentially what can kick in here. So anyhow, that's where these are defined at. And so if you go to conditional access policies, you'll and I'm gonna jump into the policies here, but in our Fortify Guardian checklist, which is our Microsoft 365 configurations on how to secure Microsoft securely by our Fortify F1, 2, F3, 4 project methodology. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to click on the filter button and I'm going to type in resist. This is for phishing resistant MFA is what I'm looking for. And we have in here a conditional access policy that was part of our configurations that we have automation to push out. But it explains about this policy and how to use it. You got to make sure you exclude your break glass account and so on and so forth. But that is all built into our configurations, and like I said, we can push these out. So I'm going to go into policies in here, and if I just type the word resistant here, this is our tenant that we use as our baseline template, and you'll see the phishing resistant list here. And so basically, this policy is assigned to all users with a specific role, and basically we pick the administrator roles. This is through Microsoft recommendations. We picked the very specific roles that we made this available to. And then it's for all cloud apps, and then I'll just go down here to the grant section, and you'll see that this is where you grant, and this is where require authentication strength. This is where those authentication strengths come in from over in the authentication methods section, and this is where you're going to see those three methods: multi-factor authentication, passwordless MFA, and phishing resistant MFA. So that's how you enable it. There's people will even go a step further and make sure you're coming from a compliant device. That means the device has to be registered and managed by Intune and meet your compliance policy standard. Things to be very careful of here. The first thing is start this in report only mode, option number 1. Okay, recommendation number 1. 2, make sure you're using a Microsoft 365 automation tool that backs up your configurations. Here's why. I've seen IT people, even here recently, check this box, require device to be marked compliant, and turn this policy on. And they forgot to do two things first. One, they first forgot to set up phishing resistant MFA on their phone. They don't have a passkey or a FIDO2 key associated with their user account. That's number one. Number two, they don't have a device registered to the environment. And so there's no compliant device. So you would fail on both of those. And number three, they forgot to exclude their break glass account. You always have a break glass account. Typically, it's the admin account that's first created when you create your Microsoft tenant. You need to make sure you have that. So just some fair warning, because I've seen people lock themselves out. The reason you back up your Microsoft 365 configurations with a product like Enforcer is so that if you do this, you can go into Enforcer, you go to the policy, and you flip it back into report only mode. And that way you can get back into your tenant. So there you go. That's how it's all set up. Let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully you found this helpful. Have a good day.